This video goes out to all my project managers out there. Whether you were actually hired as a project manager or you kind of fell into that role, if you are a ClickUp user, maybe you're trying to get your client on ClickUp, whatever the reason is that you stumbled upon this video, I want to create a video that goes through 5 essential features that every project manager should know about ClickUp. And if you're new around here, hey there, my name's Christy. I'm the CEO and founder of DaSilva Life, and I'm a verified ClickUp consultant. So with that, we're all about being efficient with our time here, so let's dive in. So before we dive into the tutorial, let's mention the 5 features we're going to talk about in today's video. So the 5 things that you really want to have a good understanding of as a project manager for your company is 1, understanding the ClickUp hierarchy, 2, knowing more about custom fields, how to utilize them, and also some best practices for custom field management. You also want to be a pro at understanding the benefits and power of dashboards and different views. You're absolutely going to need to know about time reporting, time estimates, workload view, and how to really manage the workload of each of the team members. And lastly, we'll talk about automations, how they really can take your ClickUp setup to the next level and also save you as project manager so much time and energy. So first, let's go ahead and dive into the ClickUp hierarchy, and I want to go through some tips and tricks on how to set up your ClickUp hierarchy for your company effectively. Okay, so here you can see we are in our mock template space, and your ClickUp may not look exactly the same, but these are the general buckets that we do see when we work with all different types of companies. So you're definitely going to want to have a space for operations, leadership and strategy. You can also call this growth, marketing and PR, sales, programs and courses. Now that is if your company has a program or a course. Clients, fulfillment, and then resources and trainings. So if you're not familiar with the ClickUp hierarchy, the spaces are really just a way to categorize the different departments. Once you open up this space, you'll then see you have folders, which are another way to categorize, right? So if you think of the operations department, inside that, you're going to have team management, hiring, team onboarding, a place for the team to manage their lists, and then you'll also have general operations tasks and updates and maintenance. Now again, yours may look a little bit different. You may need different items. Also, there may be things that you don't need in here yet. So that's the folders. And then once you undo the folder, you'll see there are lists. You can also have folder list here as well. And then inside the folder is actual tasks. Or now with task types, that also may be different data points, right? So company calendar and out of office, this isn't really something that you have to check off a checklist, but instead this is going to be a task type that's out of office, right? Meetings, they're not technically a task, but it's that meeting task type as well. Whereas operations tasks, they absolutely are a task and they go from to do, in progress, to complete, or whatever other statuses live in there. So talking about task types as well, to be able to set a default task type for a list, you can always go into the list settings and then put default task type. You can then click task types and add different ones. So you'll see here we have task and milestone. Those are defaulted by ClickUp. Then you have meeting, out of office, sale, and training. So those are the 4 that we have in this mock workspace right now. And so in that list, you'll see for operations, for example, maybe this would be, checking the support inbox daily, or it would be completing, any business development tasks or things that you have to do. Maybe finance, it would be, doing profit first. We have a whole video on that if you manage the finances for your company or someone else's. Okay, so in the list, like I mentioned, there are actual tasks or data points. So here you're going to see, I'll just show you a couple other examples like leadership and strategy. You can have things like team KPIs, 2024 goals, growth plan and docs. Marketing and PR, you're going to want to store all of your marketing platforms. Also, PR and events would be things like guest speakings and trainings, and then podcasting if your company has a podcast. And then again, you're going to see a couple folder lists in here that are like general buckets. So marketing and PR tasks as a whole, and then master content brainstorm. Then in sales, you'd have sales trackers, profit first, sales tasks if you use ClickUp as a leads pipeline or CRM. Programs and courses, this is where you can have course and program material databases, student feedback forms, all that good stuff. Clients is where you're going to manage the list for your project-based clients, retainer clients, a client database, gather testimonials. Fulfillment is where you're going to be actually working on the fulfillment of your company. What's the product that you sell? So whether you're launching or you're working on internal projects, that would be fulfillment. And then resources and trainings, you absolutely want to make sure there's a place that is storing all of your SOPs, all of your active templates, any other helpful resources for the team like employee handbook, quick links, etc. So again, use this as a guide. It's not one size fits all, but this is definitely a really good hierarchy for most companies. Then we get into our next tip, which is custom fields. So we're going to talk about the different views in a second, but let's take a moment to discuss custom fields. What are custom fields? They're basically when you click into a task or you're on the outside of a task here, right? Like in operations, you'll be able to see any standard columns. Those standard information are going to be things like, the due date, assignee, the date it was created, dependencies, things like that. Those are all things that are native to ClickUp. So those are things that you do not have to add to a task, but you will be able to show or hide those columns on the outside of the list, right? So maybe some lists you want to see assignee, due date, priority, where some you want to just see the date it was created or updated. Like, let me actually show you an example in the SOP library. In the SOP library, you're going to want to show the status, the linked docs if you're using docs for SOPs, the date it was created, updated, who it was created by, and then we have custom fields like department and owner. So every single view, which we'll get into next, you're going to want to make custom for that specific list, and you want to make sure you're not cluttering it with information that's not important. So custom fields are things that you can add to those lists that data point will apply to every single task in that list. Like, for example, every single task in the SOP list is going to have a department that SOP applies to. So we created a custom field dropdown that has the different departments in the company. Let's go to a marketing one as an example. So if we go into Instagram and we click into one of these tasks, you'll see the custom fields here. Every single task is going to have a caption, hashtags, content pillar, images, the month that it's going, the publish date, etc. So there also may be some custom fields that do not apply to every single task, obviously. Like, for example, maybe there's not a Canva link for every single task in the Instagram list. But if most of them do include that, then you'll want to add that to the list. So I hope that brings a little more clarity. Let's give one more example, like, for example, a client project list. You can create a custom field dropdown for phase. It's not shown on the outside here, but you can always click on show/hide and then put that phase on the outside. So here you will see, right? And then I can go ahead and hide this, where you can actually group by a custom field instead of the standard statuses, right? So for this client example, you're grouping by that field. So this is going to take a little bit of time to get used to. I also highly recommend checking out templates, either in our template shopper vault or even in the community template center, to be able to see the different way people use custom fields. But before we move on to dashboards and views, I do want to talk about some best practices for custom fields because things can get a little crazy quickly. So with custom fields, when you add it, for example, to a folder or a space or the everything view, it will add that custom field option to every single task underneath that bucket. So if you add it to one list, it's just going to be in that list. If you add it, for example, on the marketing platforms folder, we add the publish date custom field because every single task in the marketing platforms list will have a publish date, right? As long as it's in the queue and it's on the schedule, right? But that's an example of how to use one on a folder level. Maybe even marketing and PR, but not really, right? Because PR and events, it's not like going to have like a publish date. So that's an example of adding it to a particular place. Now, beware, I rarely ever recommend having a custom field on the everything level. It's also a pain to remove it from the everything level, and it's going to be on every single custom field. And so, no, it's not going to be filled out, but you don't want to create digital clutter and confusion. And so you want to make sure you're being strategic about where you're putting your custom fields. Another tip when it comes to custom field management is making sure that you know, for example, here, right, we have the phases. Well, if I go ahead and I change anything in this list, it is going to change that custom field everywhere that it lives. So if it's a drop down, you'll see, hey, if you edit this, this is used in 15 locations, so it's going to edit everywhere else. You may be tempted, for example, if you're mapping out a new template for a different project type, to just be like, okay, for this project, I'm going to change the phases to XYZ because they're a little different. You don't want to do that. What you do want to do is go ahead and duplicate that custom field, call it, Honeybook project phase, ClickUp project phase. I'm using us as an example, and then edit it because now it's going to be unique. So pros and cons to this, right? Obviously, it's a con if you accidentally change it and it updates everywhere else and it's not supposed to, but it's a pro if you want to retroactively change things for previous projects and templates, because then it will update everywhere. Say in this project prep for ClickUp projects, I want to add a new phase that now applies to all projects. Now it will apply to all those places when I edit that option. And then lastly, with custom fields, now with ClickUp 3.0, they have a custom field manager, and it is amazing, life-changing. So if you go into the quick action menu, you can see the custom field manager, and here's where you'll be able to view all of your custom fields. You can click on them and easily remove or add locations. You can merge custom fields. So this is really great for custom field cleanup as well, to see, where all these custom fields are and how you can merge them. And then also see who it was created by, the date it was created, visibility, if it's pinned or not. And so this is going to be a really great resource for you if you are the project manager and you're working on either cleaning up the workspace in the custom fields or managing the custom fields for new projects moving forward. Okay, so that is all about custom fields and some tips and tricks for you there. Now let's talk about dashboards and views. So obviously having your ClickUp mapped out properly with the hierarchy, the project lists, the tasks, making sure that everyone knows what they have to do and keeping it super organized is really important. But the other part of this that is super important is that you can actually view the projects or the data in a way that makes sense. So when you are creating different project lists, first of all, best practice for creating a space, let me actually go through that really quick, is I will always go ahead and make my default view just list. You always have to have a list because you can always add views on from there. Then I like having the task statuses to do, in progress, and complete. For some reason, I love in progress being yellow, not their standard purple. And then click apps, I turn them all off and then back on. So it turns them all on if I need them. And then I will go ahead and create that space. So the very basic form of creating that space, I'll have list view for every list I create, to do, in progress, complete as the statuses. And that's about it. Have all click apps on. So when you're creating these different project lists, then you can create different views to view the data in that list. So for example, In this project client template, I have a list view, which is grouping these by the custom field phase. So now I'm seeing this entire project at a glance. I'm choosing what items I want to see on the outside. I want to see assignee, start date, due date, comments, status. I don't typically have phase, right? If I created another list, it's automatically going to default by status. So maybe I want to rename this one phase and this one status, so then I could see those two different views side by side. You could also have docs in there. You can have Gantt views if you do dependencies. Let me actually find this one. Okay, so that was from 2022. So now if I come into Gantt view, now this is going to show me all of those things, right? So this way on each of these projects lists, let's talk about on the marketing platforms. I want to see an entire publish calendar of when all of my content is going out. Let me pull in Instagram and see, okay, this is from, let's say this is publish date today. Then if I go back to the publish calendar, now this is going to show up, right? So knowing the different views, what they're good for, again, highly recommend downloading some templates and seeing the different views other people add there. But that's going to be super helpful to be able to view the tasks and the data in different ways. So now that brings me to dashboards. Dashboards are so powerful, not only for setting up yourself and your team for success. For example, if you have a management dashboard. So now you're going to be able to see how many tasks are outstanding, what's been completed this week, what are the tasks by assignee. Okay, it looks like this person has way more tasks and this person is kind of lacking. And so basically you can add all these different widgets to get a pulse check on the company and how the team is performing. But the other part of this is you can also take data in databases and visually see it. So for example, in the sales tracker that we have, this is automated, by the way, through Zapier. Anytime we get a sale, it'll bring that information into the sales tracker. It'll categorize it. You know, here are different view examples. For example, in our sales tracker, we want to have one massive view saying here are all our yearly sales, and then we want to see each individual month that's grouped by what platform it came through. We also have tags. That's another thing. But instead of just looking at this and trying to decipher the data and clicking between all the views, we create a sales dashboard to then see how much money have we made this month, in gross and net this year, all time, by platform, by month, by offer. And so this is a way that you can really take that data in ClickUp and bring it into a visual way that's just so much more easy to understand and access than clicking in the list and reading all the custom fields. So for example, what this widget is a calculation widget. It's bringing in the field gross money, summing it, then it's bringing in the filter is date created is this month. And so that is how it's coming up with that specific number. So you can see the power that dashboards and views have for your company. Reminder, as I'm going through all this, it's important to really master these things as time goes on, but it's absolutely a process. Take it step by step, build one dashboard at a time, one view at a time. And then one of my favorite things is like, whether it's a client, a team member, myself, you know, we start a new process or we think of something that's like a bottleneck in the business. And then we're like, okay, how can we solve this with ClickUp? How can we create a new dashboard, a new view, a new automation? So again, step by step, you'll get there. But I hope this just helps you like visually. Okay, so that is dashboards and views. Then you can also actually, one more thing about dashboards, you can create individual team member dashboards. Highly recommend doing this for your team as well to really empower them, right? So as the project manager, being like, okay, I'm going to create this dashboard for you and give it to you. Please favorite this. And this is where you're going to go every day. You're going to see exactly what you have to do today. If anything's overdue, what's coming up this week, you could put like time tracking widgets, all of that good stuff. Which then actually brings me to time tracking. Tip number 4, if you are a project manager and you time track within your company, this is going to be amazing for you with ClickUp's time tracking features. So if I come into any task within ClickUp, you can see that you can add a time estimate for how long you think that task is going to take, and you can track time directly in ClickUp. So you could either just press this play button and then stop the time, or you can add time manually. You can choose if this is billable or non-billable. You can add time tags, add a description. It really is quite robust. You can also integrate time tracking tools if ClickUp isn't robust enough for you. A lot of popular ones are like EverHour, Toggle, and there are some other ones that are super popular, but you absolutely can integrate them with ClickUp if needed. So that's how you track time. You can estimate time by saying, okay, I think this will take 1 hour, which we're going to get to that in a second, how powerful that really is. So if your team is tracking time, then you'll have access to the timesheets feature. So here you'll be able to see what has been tracked for you, and then you can see all timesheets as well and see how much time, and you can also open that person's individual time. You can also set people's capacity, and I'll show you how to do that. So that's time tracking, right? But now what about when you're managing workload and capacity? As your company is growing, you're managing these projects, it's really important to know when your current team and resources are running out and you need to hire more. So on the individual level, so like on a project you could do this, but also I highly recommend doing this on the everything level, is adding a workload view. So workload, in here, you can actually set team members' capacity. So you can set daily capacity or day capacity. Maybe someone works 4 hours on Monday, 8 on Wednesday, whatever. You can say, okay, this is how much time each person is committed to the company. And then when there are tasks assigned to them with time estimates, let me go ahead and put this time estimate as 2 hours, for example. Then when you come back to this workload view, you're then going to see the capacity running out, right? Let me put this to Friday actually. So you'll see these things going up in time and what each person's capacity is. Let me see if there are any other weeks. Okay, so here you can see I'm at 1 out of 6 hours for Wednesday. Also, if you span things over a few days, it will then break up that time across those few days. And then if you see, if I put this to, let's say 8 hours, or if I put it to 6, it's going to then make my day orange. Now this is also going to accumulate all the tasks you're assigned to, or if you do it over the time limit, let me say this was 7 hours, then it's going to turn red. So if you're utilizing time estimates, you are going to be able to see how much is delegated to each team member and if they're under, at, or over capacity so easily. You can also do workload by task, sprint points, custom fields, but I do feel that time estimates are the most accurate way because sometimes a task could take, 5 minutes or it could take 2 hours. Okay, so that is some tips and tricks when it comes to time estimates, time reporting, and workload and capacity. Now, lastly, let's dive into automations. So automations are really what is going to take your ClickUp to the next level. They're going to make your team's life easier, your life easier. Everyone's going to be happy. Just like anything in ClickUp, again, take it step by step. Start implementing automations little by little, and then you'll get more confident in them and find more areas that you can automate. But for example, let's just give you a couple prime examples. So say you have your marketing campaigns, and throughout this process, it is getting reassigned to specific people, right? Someone's reviewing it, someone's editing it, someone's scheduling it. Well, what you can do is add automations so that, for example, when a status changes to needs edits, it will reassign the designer with a due date of 1 day later. What about if it's ready for review? Or let's see, here we go. If the status changes to ready for review, it's going to reassign me with a due date of 1 day later. So what that means is when something is being worked on, right, Jeff is working on this thing. All he has to do is do his job and then move it to ready for review. And then ClickUp is going to do the rest. It's going to reassign me with a due date of 1 day later. It's going to be on my calendar. I'm going to get a notification. And he's like, okay, I've done my job. It's off my calendar. Instead of either having to do that manually himself or like add me to the task and when can Christy review this, it takes out that mental energy so easily. So you don't even need to think about it. You just set the automations, you set the process in place, and then ClickUp takes care of the rest. Let me give you one more example, and then we also actually have an entire video on 5 different ClickUp automations that you can take your knowledge deeper. But for example, you could also say you have client testimonials, right? And you want to create an automation that when a task is created, that it assigns you and changes the due date so that you can review it. Or maybe you don't just want Christy DaSilva showing up on your calendar, but you want to say review new testimonial form from Christy DaSilva. What you could do in that case is, I could actually duplicate this automation. You can create a subtask, and that would be like review new testimonial from, and then task name would be that client's name. You can assign that to you with a due date of that day, etc. So there's so much that you can go through with automations. We do have that other video, and I plan to do some more robust ones in the future. But when you really understand the power of ClickUp automations and how to set them up and maximize them, it's going to be life-changing. And that is it. So I hope that gave you light to 5 key features that you should really know how to utilize and gave you some tangible examples to help you get started. So I hope that video was helpful for you and just gaining some tangible tips on how to utilize ClickUp as a project manager and the 5 essential ClickUp features that you should know how to use. Whether you are just diving into ClickUp or you're wanting to really increase your knowledge, if you're wanting to know how ClickUp can grow and scale with your company, whether it's your company or a company that you work for, go ahead and check out our Scale with ClickUp free training. I'll link it in the description below. You can watch it. It's free on demand, and it's going to give you a lot more tangible use cases of how you can really utilize and maximize ClickUp and eventually get to that place of being a power user. If you like this video and you found it helpful, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel because there's a lot more where that came from. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.